Welcome to the Nativity Podcast, where we give listeners a behind-the-scenes look into the life of our active Catholic parish here in Burke, Virginia. How can we help you grow in your own faith? Listen to find out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nativity Podcast. I am your host, as always, Father Ed Bresnan, parochial vicar of Nativity Catholic Church here in Burke, Virginia. With me, as always,
your director of social media, Mary Castellano.
My wonderful co-host. Mary, this might be one of the bigger podcasts we've had in a while.
This is probably not the biggest, but definitely one of.
It's so true. So true. We are blessed. And again, I know we've talked about this in other podcasts, but every now and again, there's an episode that we always feel might be cursed. We're always a little worried. This is one of those moments when you know that the Lord is working because the devil hates it, and the devil will try and know always to sort of stop it. So it's been this episode was stopped by audio issues, by sickness, by trying to scheduling issues, trying to get people together. But after a number of months, we have managed to bring people together. We have today with us, right? We have Ana, Alison, Rebecca, and Father Bennett, our four office personnel who have traveled all the way to Honduras with Operation Starfish to do a mission. Hello, friends.
Hello. Welcome to the Nativity Podcast.
We are so glad to have you on. Some of you we're having on again. This is good to have back. So we are awesome. We want to just get started a little bit. Alison, I'll start with you because you are connected with Operation Starfish. We're all connected with it, but I would say almost a little more than anybody else outside of maybe Jim McDaniel, who we've had on our very first podcast. And
that's right. So
folks and listeners can, if they want to, listen to the story, listen a little bit to the beginning of it, if they want to go all the way back to our original, our very first podcast. Very first one. But Alison, could you give us just a little bit of a recap of what is Operation Starfish? What is everything that we do?
Absolutely. This is always special to me because when I was growing up at Nativity, our pastor, Father Martin, would talk about Operation Starfish, which began in 1998. It was during Lent. And he invited families, if they could just make a small sacrifice every day, maybe give some coins, we could do something great for the poor if all the families at Nativity came together. So from 1998 till now, we have now 14 villages in Haiti that our parish has built, which include schools, hospitals, animal husbandry projects, clean water. It's amazing. We also have medical students that we support in Jamaica through our giving with Operation Starfish. And now we look to Honduras, which we'll share with you today, and a new partnership there. So it's been many years of partnering with the poor.
And that's beautiful. And I know that we had Jim and Alison on briefly to talk a little bit about how there's been a lot of upheaval and a lot of difficulty in Haiti. So maybe kind of as we begin and talk about Honduras, it might be helpful to sort of share the idea that it's not that we're leaving Haiti to start a new project, but rather that the project itself is expanding.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I should say too, Operation Starfish only happens with Nativity in partnership with Food for the Poor. So the blessing of working with Food for the Poor is they can help us identify what's going on in each country. So even though we can't go personally to Haiti, and of course we pray for the people there, for all the unrest, for all the violence, we are working on our 14th village right now, even with all the unrest. We just finished building a community center in Basse-Fosé, which is our 13th village, while we were doing this mission trip to Honduras. So it's really Food for the Poor helped us to identify ways we can continue the work even with the challenges.
That sounds amazing. That's incredible, guys. And so then from this work comes this idea to go to Honduras, to send an exploratory mission, etc. But how did it come about? How did it end up being you four? And what's the story behind all of that?
I could say it again. Am I talking too much? Okay. Oh.
We're here for moral support for you.
This is great. It was actually the beginning of this year. Jim McDaniel, who is our coordinator for Operation Starfish, he was there with Father Martin from the first trip to Haiti. We were just sharing with Monsignor Bob that we weren't able to do an in-person mission trip since 2019. And as we know, with the Eucharist, when you're in person, face to face with our Lord in the Eucharist, it makes a difference. It really makes a difference when we can send a group from our parish to be face to face with the people that we're partnering with. Because again, it's not just us serving the poor. It's we are touched by relationships with them. So we were saying we can't go back to Haiti. We did a mission trip in 2019 to Jamaica, which was wonderful. We were just wondering, is there another way that we can expand and look ahead to 2024, 2025? So Food for the Poor suggested Honduras. They've done work there for years. Again, we trust Food for the Poor. And that's how this trip came about. Father Bennett was invited to be our chaplain, to be our priest that traveled with us. And we did put it out to young adults. We weren't able to get a large enough group to do a full young adult mission trip. So instead, Father Monsignor Bob asked if we would like to do a leadership trip, as he called it. So that is how Father Bennett, Rebecca, and Ana got involved.
Yeah. So, Father Bennett, I understand you've done some work in Nicaragua and you studied Spanish in Guatemala. So how does this sort of factor in? Like, how did this come about? What was your kind of reaction and expectation?
Yeah, I didn't go to Nicaragua for a mission trip or anything. I've never been there. But
did I got that one wrong? Sorry.
No, that's okay. Guatemala.
Also, didn't I hear that she went to like the moon? I'm so sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Guatemala for Spanish immersion to learn the language. But I have been to the Dominican Republic for our Bonica mission, the one sponsored by the diocese. And there were a lot of similarities in the communities themselves, the needs, the poverty, of course, but then also the community. And I think that was the most striking, was to see even people who have lost so much, maybe because of flooding or landslides or whatever the natural disaster might be, or even just human evil that can infect some of these places. The community building was really, really moving. It was something that you can see when people are down and out, they really rally to come together. And that was extremely moving for me and brought back memories from my previous mission trips. So yeah, it was different in its scope, different in the people, but similar in the care, similar in the community and the love that hopefully we were able to bring, but almost more importantly for us, the love they were able to show us.
Amen. Amen. Now, Rebecca, I know one of the things as our youth minister, I know that you've always had a heart, especially for justice and a heart for outreach. And it's really evident in the work that you do with our young people. Getting to do a trip like this for yourself, what was your initial thought, or how did it come about for you in your own heart?
So when I was in college, I did an immersion to Ecuador, and that really was the first time that just played a huge part in my commitment to justice work. And it had been since then, since I had, gone on a mission trip. And since coming to Nativity, I knew Alison was doing all of those young adult trips. And I just never saw myself, I was in the youth ministry field, so never really saw myself going. And then it came up that the leader trip was, we were moving forward with that. And at first I was like, oh, it'd be so amazing if I could go. Like, it's been so many years, and didn't think it would work out just with what I had planned for the summer. And just slowly over time, it just became more clear that it would fit in perfectly with my schedule. And that alone, just felt like an invitation from God to really make it work. And I think for me, it definitely was an invitation to just experience and encounter. I think a lot of time with my work in youth ministry, I'm often the one up there leading things and planning things and, directing all of our offsite events, always directing things. And so when I was getting closer to the trip, I think that was one of the biggest invitations that I experienced, was like, no, just go and experience it and be present, and don't luckily I was able to rely on Alison and Father Bennett to really take the lead on things. And so I think that was really impactful to, like, for the first time in many years, get to be a participant, while at the same time knowing that the impact that it had on me, I would be able to bring back and share with the teens and talk to them about how we can continue to partner, even if, the teens aren't quite able to go on a mission trip yet, but ways that we can continue to work for justice through our outreach and service.
That's amazing. I appreciate that so much. And I'm not going to keep you waiting. I got to know, was this a new experience for you, or what were you feeling when you first got asked, and what was your general reaction? What did you think? What were your expectations? What were you afraid of?
And for anybody who's not familiar with Ana works on Sunday mornings at the front office, and I've gotten to know Ana very well just through since the pandemic started, hanging out with her on Sundays. So it's such an honor to have you on the show. And
Thank you.
Yeah. So what kind of brought you to Honduras? What brought you to this trip?
Well, I have the invitation, and it was my first mission, so I honestly didn't know what to expect, what happens during mission trips. So basically, I just kind of observe most of the time and learn and see. I was surprised of the similarities of the community and the needs. It reminded me a lot of my childhood in Mexico. So I was expecting to see a lot more differences, but it was really, really similar. So that's what surprised me the most, and how those people who have so much need, but they are so grateful, that it got to the point that it felt kind of overwhelming, their gratitude. It just felt like, I don't know how to, like, it was just too much, and I didn't know how to give it back in a way.
Yeah, that's so true. I think sometimes it can feel a little awkward when you're not quite sure what it is you're providing for other people, but it never seems to measure up to the gratitude that they're giving back to you. And you're like, wait, I'm just here for you. And they're like, that's what we need.
And that was an interesting role for the four of us, because we were going as representatives of our Nativity community. We knew that not everyone could travel, so we had the privilege of being the ones to go and travel. And yeah, as Ana said, it just felt like a lot, because we knew the gratitude that they shared for the work that Nativity has done, which is we already built a Colirio Clinic, and we were going to visit that clinic and meet the community. That's not because of the four of us, and we're the ones who are there to meet them. But it was also a blessing to be able to bring back their stories to the community and just share the connection that we do have with the people.
That's incredible. Okay, so what happened? I mean, I know, I feel like this happens all the time. People will talk about mission trips, and so you go and you do stuff. But maybe walk us through what was it was a week long, and it was in Honduras, and there was a clinic involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So our main goal was to go visit the clinic and see the good work that the generosity from Nativity was able to provide for these people. And so no matter what all the other events were, this was the main event for us, what we wanted to go see and kind of report back to the parish. But yeah, really, each day we were going to different sites, and this was all led through a local group in country called Saputo, and they were very good at kind of showing the needs in different ways. They said, okay, the clinic was a big need, and this was something that you were able to provide, but we want to show you similar needs, or sometimes very different needs in other places, and just give us a lay of the land. What is Honduras? Who are the people? What are their needs? And so our first full day, we went to the Saputo warehouse, and there we got to see the shipment that came in from Stella Marina, from all the birthing kits and medical supplies and medical equipment, all these different things that Alison and I were able to help send off. And we arrive and we see this there, and we're like, whoa, we know this. This is amazing. We have, these are things like, we remember seeing them, but from that warehouse, we got to kind of see the operations of Saputo and Food for the Poor, how they work in tandem, hand in hand, to help distribute these things. But we took a little detour. Our first day, we were supposed to work in the warehouse basically for about 4 or 5 hours, packaging up food and other supplies. But because our package had arrived from America of all the medical equipment and everything, the leader of Saputo, Linda, she said, you know what? We've got this need in a local hospital, birthing hospital, and they need medical examination tables. And they just happened to just arrive. And she said, so we're still going to work in the warehouse, still, provide food and make kits to then distribute. But I want to take you over there and I want you guys to hand deliver these. And so to see it from the perspective of, wow, these things, all year I was able to witness in my first year here at Nativity, wow, the generosity of everybody, the equipment and everything coming together through Stella Marina to then distribute. Well, it was like tying up loose ends. It was seeing it to the finish. And that was really amazing for me. Yeah.
To see the whole thing and to see the whole thing go. And we've had Stella Marina on our podcast too. So this is really good for us to see. It's like a shipping crate that we sent 2 years ago is now coming back because we see the work. Boy, we do say Nativity is aggressively positive in a good way. In a beautiful way, the generosity of the people is incredibly unmatched. So, so that's beautiful that you were able to hand deliver that. So
that was all day one?
Yeah, that was day one.
That was half of day one.
Yeah, half of day one.
That's what it sounded like there was more to that day.
That was half of day one. So we got a tour of the facilities at Saputo, their warehouse, and got to know them a little more and their background. And just as filling in the blanks, this is an operation run basically by one family, their immediate family and then extended family. Linda, who was in the government in Honduras, she decided to leave government work, realizing that she could bring greater good through private ventures. And so she really started this work as coming from the needs she saw in government work and said, well, I think we can do this better. She enlisted her daughter-in-law, who is kind of like her manager. She runs all the daily operations and is the go-getter and gets things done. Her son is the lawyer for all of their ventures, kind of working out all the legal shipping regulations for incoming equipment and food and working with Food for the Poor to make sure all those things happen. A nephew who is kind of like the guy who goes out into the field and is like surveying the needs and being mobilized for natural disasters. I like to say that this family basically is FEMA for Honduras on a private scale, and the government themselves comes to them for support. Like they're one of the first responders in a lot of ways. So very impressed with this family. Beautiful Catholic family. Really, their heart is just absolutely in the right place. Our Lord has touched them in such a way to give of themselves completely in this work. And it's a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 365 days a year venture for them. They don't take breaks. And they were just jovial and loving the entire time. We were only one of several mission groups that were coming through that they were hosting, and they gave us complete attention as if we were the only mission group that came through that year. I was extremely impressed by them and owe a lot of gratitude, just not only for their hospitality, but showing us their country, their beautiful country.
Wow.
And they really helped craft how we spent the rest of the week. So as Father Bennett shared, that was just half of the first day. We spent a whole day at the clinic, which I mentioned earlier. We were able to visit an orphanage that Saputo and Food for the Poor support. We visited a community, Choloma, right, where they help Food for the Poor and Saputo help women and families set up businesses to be able to support themselves. So they give them the training that they need. They find out what gifts and talents they already have. And so then a lot of times it is women are able to support their families through these businesses. So we're able to go there and visit with these people in the community. There's more too that I'm probably forgetting.
Right. So the same day that we went to the maternity hospital and to the Saputo warehouse, we went to one of the sustainable communities that Saputo supports and helped establish, El Fraternidad. And we did a house rosary there, which that was one of my favorite days. I mean, they were all great, but
what made it one of your favorite days?
Well, definitely an encounter, just is like seeing the maternity hospital, but also, and I can share about that, but in the sustainable community, at the house rosary, we just was really beautiful. Like the first time getting to see one of their sustainable communities and getting to meet the people. Some of the girls did like a dance in honor of Mary, and then we said a rosary with the whole community gathered, and it was beautiful, like sunny skies, just so peaceful, praying the rosary, and about halfway through, just torrential rain.
Oh, is this the photo of Father Bennett of you holding up like the tent?
Yes.
That everyone was under?
Yeah.
That's epic. I love that picture.
It really was. Like it rains. I hadn't experienced rains like this in so long.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, the community was so generous. They put up, an easy up. They were prepared. And I think it was a beautiful witness to see, even when the rain was pouring down, the community stayed. The children, it was a family who was hosting at their house. And the children stayed. The children led decades of the rosary with their mother. And they didn't even think to like move inside with the rain. It was really inspiring. And we all just stayed out there and continued praying. And yeah, Father Bennett helped hold down the tent so it didn't blow away.
We held up the fort.
Yeah. But earlier that day, we went to the maternity hospital, as Father Bennett shared. And that was very impactful as well. It was a public hospital, if I remember correctly. And yeah, it was just difficult to see, thinking about what conditions, if I were, to give birth one day, like what conditions would I expect my hospital to have? And I think it was just hard to see because, there were lights flickering and broken windows and trash everywhere. And even outside, there's like a bar keeping families outside. Families are not allowed to come in and accompany the women. And most of the women there giving birth are, they're young, in their teens, in their 20s, around my age. So it just really like hit me, personally of like, wow, this is just such a challenging experience. And it was just so hard to see the families out there like so concerned. And it felt unfair that like we were allowed to go in and to see, the hospital.
Do you know why the families were not allowed in?
I'm not sure. Some regulation.
Yeah, it had a little bit to do with some just security and keeping the place less raucous, and having so many extra people. We might think of a hospital and a maternity wing here in the States where you have this huge building and huge facilities. Everything it looks sterile and clean, and that's just not the case in this building. So you really have maybe a building that's the size of the footprint is the size of like the Father Martin Center, extending through into the cafeteria. And so having all of extended family and so many people, I think they were telling us that that morning, we got there late in the morning, that around 25 to 30 women had already given birth that morning. And they were expecting maybe double that for the rest of the day. So, yeah, this is like a very specific birthing unit, and they're looking to just help them give birth, and then give them care they need afterward, and then kind of send them on their way. Like there's no nonsense in a lot of that. So the beautiful thing though was again we were able to distribute the birthing kits and the kits for infants that the parishioners here were able to make, and hand delivering them to the mothers right then and there. It was incredible. So
that's wow. Yes, Anna. Go.
No, just like Father Bennett said, like they don't have many beds available, and on top of that, no AC, and the heat was intense. So I'm imagining that's another reason why they didn't allow their families to come in as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I share, like, I don't know, in reflecting on the whole experience, I feel like with most mission trips, immersions, it's like you experience, there's like that first layer of like experiencing the differences, experiencing the poverty, and feeling like the frustration of like the inequality. And then, that push for justice, the reminder of like the need for justice work. It's always happening, and it's just a reminder that we can't stop encountering people. I feel like that's always like one of the layers, I guess, that goes along with the trip. But then I guess I'm sharing some of the challenging sites to then, be reminded of the need for justice work, but then also moving to that place of hope, as Father Bennett was sharing. Like literally we brought in new hospital beds, taking out the rusted ones, the ones with holes in them, and like literally bringing in new beds that moment, giving out the birthing kits. It just gave me so much, like filled me with so much hope. And also gave me a new perspective, because for youth ministry, every year we make these birthing kits. We partner with Stella Marina. And I always knew it was important work. And I was, I always made sure to partner with them because I knew it was important. But then going and seeing and encountering the mothers who were receiving these kits and being able to hand them out, both birthing kits and newborn kits. It just, I don't know, it really solidified the work that we're doing in partnering with Stella Marina and our mission of Stella Marina and Operation Starfish in partnership with Food for the Poor.
And for our listeners, it's really good to remember when we interviewed Stella Marina, they talked a lot about one of the major needs in Haiti right from the beginning was that doctors and midwives did not have clean equipment and the right kinds of things to be able to deliver a healthy baby, to help deliver a healthy baby. And so infant mortality was increased, and a lot of women and their children were at risk simply because there weren't enough sanitary equipment and things to be able to assist with a birth. And so we found out that it was actually very easy to collect just some basic items, whether it be sterile pads and gauze and those kinds of things to be able to help assist a midwife in a live birth. And so Stella Marina has a whole project where they buy these things at discount and have them donated and get them in bulk. And then it's just a matter of getting the manpower together to be able to assemble those things. And so one way that our parish has been very beautifully able to assist in that is that oftentimes they'll have it set up after Mass. And as Rebecca was just saying, getting the youth group and getting like Camp on the Edge and some of the other groups that we do to assist in assembling those kits. And now to be able to see it full circle, because you're able to hand deliver those kits to the midwives and the doctors who were able to use those to assist in those individual births.
So for now, looking to the future for Stella Marina as of 2024, you can still donate financially to it, and the kits will be packed either in country or at Food for the Poor and shipped.
Oh yeah, well no, that makes a
like
lot of sense.
It's not like a build it yourself.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Okay.
But it was a great way to do it. It was an incredible thing we used to be able to do.
And part of the reason for that was the shipping costs and everything here to either Food for the Poor or in country was just getting overburdensome. And working with our partners, the way forward was to help supply the monetary need to be able to do that locally, if you can, at best, especially Haiti, because there are a lot of embargoes and a lot of import-export laws that change so frequently, especially with textiles and other things. And so, things would get produced and then tried to ship into country, and then they would just have to turn around and not be able to offload there. So they were finding that if they're able to do it in country, that is the best case. So we're just moving in a different direction of how we're still able to supply those things in a different manner.
Gotcha. Thank you for the clarification. That's brand new information.
Yeah, and it really highlights sort of the flexibility that you need in terms of working for justice around the world, being able to navigate. And I think maybe ideally illustrates kind of the pivot that this represents, going from Haiti to Honduras, not abandoning one, but having to look at it in a different way.
Yeah. So then, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, a great thing for all of us, we kept talking throughout the week, was we would just notice the needs, and Ana would keep a list on her phone of things that she noticed. And we were saying just how incredible is it that we know we can come back to our parish community and present the needs, and we're confident that our parish will want to help make a difference for these needs. I think that's a pretty rare experience, and that was just such a gift for us, because as Rebecca shared, as some of us have started sharing these really powerful encounters we've had, to see that and not be able to do anything is a whole other level of suffering. But when maybe I can help work towards change in this area, that was amazing part of the experience.
Well, maybe that's a really good segue into another section, is to really think to ourselves, like, what did you guys notice were some of those needs, and what are some of the maybe pathways forward that you envision for our parish? What can our parish do as we move forward?
The first thing that comes to mind is in the clinic at Colirio. They are really far away into the mountains, so their roads are basically dirt. They are really appreciative of the medication that they have available, which is free for them. But they do need an ambulance to go and get into the city when that clinic is not able to treat any more complex issues. What else? Food for the Poor, that's another thing that they said that the most difficult thing to get is medication. And that's something that they kept mentioning, that they were really thankful to get medication now available to treat simple things where before they couldn't. And even to go into town, they will need a ride, but they already don't have money to get that ride. And then on top of that, try to pay for that consultation. It was something that was stressing them a lot.
And so maybe to put it into perspective, the clinic at Colirio is kind of centrally located in a mountainous region, mountain town, in the northwestern part of the country. And the idea for the clinic to be in this specific location was to serve the needs of these smaller towns surrounding this one spot. So there are about 8 to 10 8 to 10 other villages surrounding this spot where they can come and receive medical care. We're not talking anything too extensive like surgery or anything like that, but something maybe akin to our urgent care that we would have here in the States, something similar to that, to be a satellite for basic emergencies, illnesses, a lot of things concerning fresh water and diseases that accompany that, issues with dehydration. So really being able to take care of those things at a more local level was very important for not just the village where Colirio is, but the surrounding villages as well. So,
Can you tell them about your experience blessing the clinic and the reception from the community?
yeah, this was the big reason, as I said earlier, for going was going to see the clinic, and we arrived there, and they have all these tents set up right outside the clinic, and there was just hundreds of people hanging around, and music was being played, and people were laughing and having a good time, and it was just incredible. So they held this panel, and the mayor from the closest big village came out to welcome us. And the mayor put this whole thing together and introduced us to many of the partners who were able to kind of have this come together. And, I felt a little embarrassed because they were all there to celebrate us as individuals, like as if I, Father Bennett, had, as if I was there, digging the footers and pouring the concrete and all these things. And, it was quite shocking, in a beautifully humbling way, the generosity of not only the immediate community there, but these folks were coming from all those surrounding villages, and just the joy on their faces. So it was very impactful. But blessing the building itself, I was able to pray with the people and bless all the people there. And for me as a priest, this was extremely impactful and brought me back to a moment in seminary where those of us studying at Mount St. Mary's, we have a very special saint dear to our heart, Blessed Stanley Rother, who was a missionary priest, and he went to the mission field in Guatemala to give his life for the people. And so being there among the people as a spiritual father and blessing them was just incredible. It showed me what fatherhood was about in my priesthood. And for that, I will be ever grateful.
Oh, and so what day was that? Just so we have kind of a timeline for context.
Second full.
That was day 2?
It was day 2.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there were only 3 days.
Yeah. When the day that we were at the clinic really stood out to me because of my experiences now going on 2 mission trips to Haiti with college students and young adults, 1 mission trip to Jamaica with our college students and young adults, and now to Honduras. And in each of those locations, I've had extremely powerful moments that I still cry when I think about. They're so impactful because I really felt like I saw the face of Christ in the people. So being at the clinic that day, there was a moment where there were so many kids around at this community, as Father Bennett shared. Hundreds of people were there. And we were in the clinic taking a tour, and all of these kids all of a sudden were just inside. And Rebecca was there, everybody else was there. And they were just kind of staring at us. And my Spanish, I would love to improve for next year's mission trip. So I couldn't really talk to them. But I remembered on my first trip to Haiti in 2016, our first outing there, it was so overwhelming to me. I didn't speak Creole or anything. And Jim McDaniel showed me that if you just kind of put your hands out, the kids will put their hands out and you can pull it back and you kind of play this game where you try to tap their hands. And that just broke the ice. We were at a feeding center in Haiti. So the thought just came back to me. We're surrounded by kids at the clinic. So I started doing that, and the kids are laughing and joking with each other. And all of a sudden I'm surrounded by more kids. And then Rebecca started doing it. She's surrounded by kids too. And I just had this thought that, oh my gosh, how is it I'm having such a similar experience in Honduras, in Haiti, in Jamaica. These are completely different places. And it just made me think it's because I'm recognizing Christ in these kids. And it's like you're recognizing a family member. It's the same no matter what country it is. And that just speaks so much to me. And I'm so grateful that God has brought me to these different experiences. So that was a really powerful moment that I'll remember. Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love that. Isn't it amazing how language goes beyond words, right? Language and gesture, language in game and play. It's incredible. Ladies, did you guys have any other stories or memorable, like what stuck out to you? What was
Well, specifically from that day, because then I want to kind of touch on what happened for day
three.
three.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I echo Father Bennett's sentiments about like feeling overwhelmed by the generosity. I remember at our reflection that evening, I remember sharing like it was overwhelming, but at the same time, it just felt so right for us to be there. And it felt like a reunion almost, like we had been waiting so long to go visit them and to see the clinic that Nativity helped sponsor. And, in return, it felt, I could feel that they were waiting for us too. And so it just, I don't know, that was a really powerful encounter of just feeling the joy and the rightness of being together, if that makes sense. And I learned a lot that day. It was really wonderful just getting to see the facility, how clean it was, just getting to hear the impact that it has had on the community. People sharing how they used to have to, travel 2.5, 3 hours to the nearest hospital. And now with the clinic in their community, it goes down to like a 25-minute walk as like the longest commute. And getting to hear directly from the neighbors of how that has impacted their lives. And just hearing the stories of like how the land was granted and just getting to hear the stories from like the initial conversations among us here at Nativity with Food for the Poor, but then also in Honduras with the mayor getting the land, everything from the beginning to the end project. It just was really wonderful, just such a joyful day, and really a reminder of like how beautiful it is when we're able to partner with people and really make an impact. And it just, again, was a really eye-opening experience to see the impact of, on the community. But I think the biggest takeaway for me was just I don't have any other word for other than like the rightness of us being there. Like it just felt like a divine, I don't know, God was super present in like the work that God had done to bring us together in that moment.
Amazing.
For me, it was a older lady. Like we were walking away, I guess heading towards the bus. And so we had to pass the crowd. And there was this old lady who was sitting down, and she just had this urgency to make sure to get a hold of you. And so she grabbed my hand, just pulled me on a hug, and gave me a kiss. And it just was really touching because it was just like giving me a hug as I'm a complete stranger to her, but the way she showed her love is if I was part of her family. So that was really, really touching. I was like, and I'll remember her forever.
So the mayor from San Luis, which is the village of the Santa Barbara province, also took care of the village where the clinic is. And so on our way to the clinic, we stopped in San Luis, and we actually met the mayor in the mayor's office. Like, These were some of the connections that Saputo had. Like that's how close they were working with the local people, and the connections that they had. But the mayor himself, he said, we'll be with you soon. Like we'll be there. We're going. But that also gave us kind of a distance of, hey, where we were in location to the next biggest clinic or hospital. And we were still, a 45-minute drive on a mountainous road, dirt road, mind you, where it's inaccessible certain times of the year because of the rainy season. You cannot traverse it. But anyway, the mayor starts speaking, and he starts including his own father at the clinic. And he's talking about his dad in a certain way, and I'm picking up most of the Spanish, but he starts to say that the land on which the clinic was built was his father's land. And he starts to share this story that his father didn't want to give that portion of land at first. He wanted to give a different area of the little village, but it wasn't as good. It would have been more difficult to access, especially for construction, all these things. And so his son, the mayor of the neighboring town, said, no, you need to give this land. And he said to him, my father and I, we were fighting. We were enemies for 3 days. But I spoke to my brother, and I told my brother to really lean into my father and speak to him about giving this prime piece of land. His father ended up speaking, and his father said, I realized in my old age that I don't have much more time left here. But I've been a part of this community, and this community is my family. And to be able to make a lasting impression from what I have, and to be able to give this land to build something that will make this family more sustainable in the future is what I'm happy to give. And so to see the mayor's father pour his heart out into this community and call all these neighboring villagers his family was extremely touching. To show, even from what he had, and we're not talking about expanses of acres here, but any land ownership is a sign of some wealth. But we're not talking about the affluence we have here. So to give up any portion was really to give of himself. And it was just amazing. So afterward, I went up and I thanked the father, and I shook his hand, and he embraced me and he said, you're welcome here anytime, and you are a part of my family. And so just to have that connection that, maybe he was stubborn a little bit at first, not wanting to give up the primo land, but having his sons work on him, like they were so happy to share that experience and even struggle that they had in planning and working through this. It was amazing to see the familial relationship that they build.
And the mayor said that publicly, to the four of us. Father Bennett got the extra invitation from the father, but the mayor said, you are part of our family. Please come back. We hope you'll come back. And again, we receive that as representatives of the parish and pass that on to everyone else listening to this, that this is, we as a Nativity family are a part of this community. We live our lives here as they live their lives there. But there is this new relationship, this new connection, which was really amazing.
That's beautifully said. And I think it leads us right into, what happened on the third day? How do you top that experience?
This day felt like it was 17 days long. We did so many things every day. But one part of that day was they brought us to a riverbank community. And it was homes that were built right next to a riverbed. So number one, anytime it floods, it would be, their things would get destroyed. But then also they put a very busy road right through the middle of the community. So children had been killed because of that road. So Linda and Lil from Saputo were sharing with us this was a community that they hope to relocate eventually to a safer place. But of course, there's distrust. You're more comfortable with the location where you are. But we were there to help distribute the bags of food that we had helped put together at the Saputo warehouse on day one. So this was kind of our last day. And that was I think that was hard for us to see just the poverty that these families were living in. Again, the gratitude of them receiving these bags of food that we're handing to them. But just to know that we were able to witness it and then come back again and share. I mean, that was our role.
Is it possible for those who've never been on a mission trip? Sometimes it's hard to visualize poverty. Can you just explain, just to kind of paint a picture, what does that look like?
They don't have electricity. Like, they were stealing electricity from neighbors that actually have an actual home. But that day, or close to those days, they cut the cable. And so that was another concern they had, that now they didn't have access to electricity. There's no kitchen. I saw there was like a made up. Yeah, there was a pot outside where I guess that's their only kitchen for the community. And I saw one of the sheds, because what's built on the river bank is not actual homes. It's just pieces of metal, wood. And one of what they use as a door lock was a fork. So there's they don't have anything. They don't have beds. I think as a bed, they use old clothes they have available. There's an old lady who needed medical attention, and Lil was able to get it. But she was laying on it. It wasn't a bed. It was something hard. And I think that lady was in her 80s, and the son 70s or something like that. They were all both elderly, but the son was just so concerned about his mom, because she was not doing well, and he didn't know where to go. He didn't want to leave her. They literally have nothing, and it's just on top of having health issues. It's just not having access to medical assistance, because there's so many people, and the ratio between hospitals and people is not, they can't afford to treat everybody. So from what I was told, they only treat really bad cases, because they can't really do comprehensive physicals or anything like that to prevent further complications, because they just don't have the space. So everybody who makes it into the hospital is because they're already doing really bad.
It feels like an incredibly heartbreaking scene, but what were you able to do while you were there? It was just to meet the people and greet the community?
That was also our opportunity to think of if Nativity might want to help support this particular community in the future through Operation Starfish. And that is something we've talked with Monsignor Bob about. And it will take some time. This is not something that can just happen overnight. Number one, land needs to be acquired. I think the land has now been acquired, but there's going to be a lot of steps between moving the community over. But yes, that is something that was on Ana's list. We came back, we shared with Monsignor Bob, and we hope that could be a project, if not 2025, maybe 2026.
Yeah, a lot of the need is really, first and foremost, trust. These people who are living in shacks, shanties. I mean, we're talking about, plywood at best, cardboard and scraps of metal, like Ana had said, is more the reality. And so these people have come together and rallied together in their poverty and in their need to help each other. And so they've formed trust amongst themselves. Now, this also isn't in some far-flung part of Honduras. This is right in the city where we were staying. So you have this collage of affluence in high-rise, nice luxury homes and apartments, and then you can look out your window and see the river community, just outside your window. So noticing that. But now, where's the trust? If you can see from the poverty that the government hasn't been willing to help you before, and this is what you're left to do, then why would you trust the government who is saying, well, we're going to provide a space for you somewhere else and relocate you? Like, where's the trust in relationship there? So really what Saputo has been able to do is, through food distribution and light medical aid to these smaller little shanty communities, they've been gaining the trust. And so Saputo really is that link in the chain to help them realize, okay, we've established a place to make a home, a stable home, a community, to give you an address, give you a means to build your economy, not just for your family, but for this community. And so that is the real hope, to say, we see where you are now. We want to help bring you out of this, but then make you self-sustainable, not just give you something and then have the government take it away in a future date.
Sure.
So this was all part of what we were experiencing and seeing, was to say, okay, there's a certain dance that is involved, a certain way of relating with the person, where true charity can flourish. We can tell people about doctrine and theology till the cows come home, but if I haven't been there with someone to walk with them and to see their need, well, what is any of that going to help for them? And so this is really the kind of the first stages of building that relationship. So our days in seeing these other communities, not the one at the riverbank, but other successful communities that came from similar situations, was about seeing those communities and how much they have thrived. And we did see one particular community that had many different challenges and many instances of, well, can they trust what's going on here? And it was actually a very wonderful outcome and a beautiful story.
That was, I don't remember particularly which day that was, but we specifically met one woman named Astray. And what was beautiful was we heard her story, which was very challenging. She came from abusive parents and then lived in an orphanage, which we were actually able to visit that orphanage. So we kind of could see the beginnings of her story. And then through being at that orphanage and getting to know Linda and Saputo, they found that she had this incredible artistic talent, and Linda was able to help nurture that. And now she has her own art business. And if you were at Nativity's Fall Festival this year, you saw that we had bags out, which Astray had painted. There were also little bags for coffee that she'd also painted. So again, kind of coming full circle, you can now see how she's able to, through her art, support her own family. And we're able to visit her house and meet her children. Her kids were playing with some pretty cute cats that we were enjoying, little kittens we were enjoying. And just to see her thriving and joyful, if I hadn't heard the story of her upbringing and how challenging that was, I never would have believed that. So she is just a one-woman example of how God can really work through a community to bring her from a really challenging situation to where she is in life. And that's something that's really cool, because we're hoping to be able to bring more of those items that she has painted and made to Nativity to potentially offer. If parishioners wanted to buy them to give them as gifts, we could then send back the money to help support her business. So that's something that could be exciting for the future.
That's amazing. I do want to get into that, but before we get into like the path forward, I understand that there were a couple of other things that you guys did on the third day. And one of those was kind of going along with the riverbank community to see a little bit about what the community could be. So could you guys share a little bit about Choloma?
Yeah, so Choloma was one of the communities that we visited later that day. And it was just really strategically, beautifully planned, because we started the day at the riverbank community where we were able to see the needs, see the potential for, greater safety and greater stability. And then they took us to one of their most successful communities, Choloma. And it was really beautiful to see the community. It was so alive, and we got to enter and like see the kids during school and, chat with them, joke with them. Some of us even tried some of their math problems that they were doing on the board. So really got to engage with them, got to see their community center, and we basically just went around the whole village and got to see the various income generating projects that have been started through the work of Saputo. So there was a woman, who had a bakery, and a couple women who had like a textile business, some metal working, right, and woodworking. So just a wide variety of projects. And we also saw the community center that feeds the children every day through donations. They said most of the food is donated. And that has really helped bring, having the stable nutrition, each day has really made an impact on the community. And I remember they were saying that after Choloma was established, was it Hurricane Iota, came and really just destroyed the community, and the land was underwater. And it was a really beautiful witness, the way that they all came together after that as a community to rebuild Choloma and to keep the businesses alive, keep the community alive. And we had the opportunity to meet with the leader of Choloma. Typically, each village has a representative. And we met Manuel and got to hear his story. And, similar to others we had encountered, had, an element of tragedy in their lives that then, led to just a greater sense of community, a greater sense of belonging in the community. And that was a really wonderful day. And again, just having Father Bennett there to offer a blessing to the community. And I know you had a moment with Manuel as well. But I remember one of the community had an opportunity to speak about the impact that Choloma has had on their lives. And I remember there was one woman who was saying, when we were presented with this opportunity, all we were looking for at first was just like a house. We needed a house. But over time, came to realize it wasn't a house I was looking for, but a community. And I think that really hit me because it was a reminder of the great impact of not just meeting people's material needs, but their spiritual and emotional needs as well. Of the way that this community has impacted their whole lives, not just by providing shelter, those basic needs, but providing friendship and community, and how much of an impact that can have on someone's life.
I think that's really the crown jewel of Operation Starfish too. Is it was evident in the first conversation we had with Jim in the first podcast that we had, was the idea that this is not just a fundraising experience. This is not just raise money and throw money at a situation. This is about building building deeper bonds, or I should say forging deeper bonds and building deep communities, intentional communities. What a beautiful way that in only 3 days you guys were able to experience so much of that. Well, were there any other experiences over those 3 days that were really impactful for you that you might want to share about? Because from there, I want to jump into, what's the next step and where do we go? But I want to make sure that you have that opportunity to share a memory or share maybe an anecdote or one thing that we might have overlooked.
I think for me, it just always goes back to that this experience built on so much else before for me personally, that in having been to Haiti and having been to Jamaica, and now going to Honduras. I was just so proud to be there representing Nativity. So honored to be there with the other 3 people in this room and to see how God is just and with you guys too, of course, Father Bennett and Mary.
Oh yeah, you were there in spirit. Were you there in
4 of us
spirit?
that traveled. Father Monsignor Bob called us the Fab Four. I think we'll continue with that. But
They did have a little bit of swagger in the office after they came back, where like they had forged a very special bond, and the rest of us, we weren't chopped liver. It's not like that kind of a thing, but it was definitely like a wow. Oh, you guys! Like it was kind
We
of.
definitely have some inside jokes.
They had a sparkle.
We're not privy.
it was a week. It was a week, which I think you see that because of how impactful the week was for all of us and the experiences that we had. I think the only other brief story I can share, I guess it's not one specific story, but it's just for me, it's always the kids. It's always just interacting with the kids and thinking of, the lives that my nieces and nephew live here and the type of life I hope to be able to give to my future children, seeing how challenging life is for the children and the communities we met, and seeing their joy and the fact that they gave that joy freely to us. Little kids are playing soccer with Father Bennett at the orphanage. And, I would just have a little kid grab my hand, and for whatever community we were, that child will be with me until we left at the end of the day. And I think that is just, again, such a gift. I can't even really describe how much that meant to me. And, I still think of those kids. I still pray for them. Even if I didn't get to know their name, I still think of them. So that was just that was a big part of the experience for me.
That reminds me of the day that we were at the orphanage. We went into the chapel to pray and just to kind of gather the community. And we were all squished in there. I was like in a row with like 10 other kids, like on top of me, basically. And we were all squished in. I don't even remember what we were talking about. It was in Spanish. I couldn't. That's why I don't remember. I was picking up words here and there, but I remember we were finished and we were walking out, and the kids just like pushed the doors open, ran outside, and like threw their arms out wide and like started spinning and just like fell to the ground, like just in playfulness and joy. And I remember like I was holding one of the girls' hands, and so I kind of, spread my arms out with her too and like twirled, and it was just like such a childlike, simple moment of great joy and great connection. And yeah, just your note about the children and the impact, Alison, I definitely echo that as well.
I love it. I love it because I think this is always one of those things. There's a balance that always seems to happen on mission trips, and especially like when they're well put together, when they're, when they go in with the right intention. And that's that there's a very intentional cause. We know why we're here, and and there's a beautiful like abandonment to God's providence to say the Lord is going to look out for us this week. So I'd like to be a good witness to the Lord. But there's also an element of joy. There's an element of fun. There's an element of like, and I don't know, je ne sais quoi. It's like, it's just that whatever that you can't put your finger on, but when you go, you experience it. It leads to inside jokes. It leads to just that common core memory. But it means that when you're trying to express a desire for someone else to say, hey, should I go on a mission trip? And you say, absolutely, because you're going to make a positive impact in the community. But also there's this thing that's going to happen to you too. So with that said, what is the path forward? What is the hope now for the Honduras mission trip, for Food for the Poor, for Operation Starfish? What's the hope that you hope that the listeners and that our parish will be able to do going forward?
Well, practically speaking, we received permission from Monsignor Bob to hold another mission trip, this immersion experience in 2025, so next year, July 7th through 11th will be the dates.
So mark your calendar,
And
July 7 to 11, 2025.
2025. And really, when we came back from this trip, we met with Monsignor, and he said, do we want to continue this partnership based on all of your experiences? And we all said, yes, absolutely. So whatever group comes with us next year, and I will say our goal is for it to be a young adult trip. So college-age students, young adult parishioners in their 20s and 30s. Father Bennett is coming again, which will be great. Our hope is to be able to bring that group and do kind of the same thing that Ana did with her list, to go back and to see these places. We know we'll spend a whole day at El Colirio Clinic again. So you'll get to meet, hopefully, the mayor, his father. You'll get to meet the community that we shared about today. And then go to other places, because Food for the Poor in Saputo will always present us with a new potential need. And you'll be able to be part of helping to make these decisions about how is our parish using the extra gifts, the blessing, the financial contributions that people give. What do you think? How do you think the parish should use it? So that would be a great blessing. And just the fun, too, the joy that hopefully is reflected today. So that's one hope for next year. Aside from offering the mission trip next year, we also just want to continue educating the parish and just sharing how wide Operation Starfish is and the many different projects that are happening concurrently. Like I said, while we were in Honduras, the 14th village is being built. They're working on the community center at the 13th village in Haiti. We are always supporting a medical student in Jamaica. That's ongoing. So we just hope to continue spreading awareness about what's already happening in Operation Starfish, and then how Operation Starfish partners with all of the other ministries here at Nativity that are serving people here. That maybe maybe a mission trip isn't for you. It's not for everybody. Not everyone is called to go on mission. I would say pray if pray about if you feel called. If you're not, maybe you could have an encounter with someone in another ministry that Nativity offers. So that's just something to think about.
Sure. And then also maybe supporting Starfish. I think it's focus that always says some go by giving and some give by going. Right. So the idea that you can support the mission and to support a young adult who might have not necessarily as much disposable income or anything like that to be able to afford a trip like this.
And we also hope to be able to offer some coffee. We drank incredible coffee throughout the week. And we're in conversation with Food for the Poor to see if we could have coffee shipped here that we could then offer to our parishioners. In buying a bag of that coffee, you're supporting a community in Honduras. And then whoever you give that coffee to, if you're gifting it, you're continuing to spread the mission. So maybe we can help you with your coffee needs in the future.
Yeah, part of the beauty of sharing the coffee was this was a lot of the local communities' way of expressing their generosity to us by offering us local goods. And so part of what we wanted to do was to bring that back to the parish, to extend the generosity that we received in that specific way and make that available to the parish at large. So yeah, our hope is to maybe do some certain things. Maybe, I don't know, stay tuned for the holiday season. Perhaps we might have a specific Honduran holiday blend. I think that has a nice ring to it.
Honduran holiday blend.
So yeah, we'll see what comes of that, and how we can have opportunities for donation through those avenues. But yeah, we're expanding. Currently, we are working with Food for the Poor and trying to see what things are available and not get bogged down in maybe logistics if things would be too difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. So would you recommend a trip like this to not just a young adult, but to anybody else? What would be your recommendation for somebody sitting on the fence?
I would definitely encourage them to go. I think we've talked a lot about how, not only does it impact the community that you're serving, but the encounter impacts you as well. I think, and not to sensationalize that or to say that we're going on this mission trip just so that we are changed, but to see that it's a complement, there's a complementarity there, an exchange, an encounter, and just a transformation really of like the community that we're encountering, but then of course in our own hearts, in our own spiritual lives, a transformation. I think Alison kind of mentioned when talking about the children, like the feelings of overwhelm when you're seeing the children, seeing the face of Christ. And that's always my takeaway as well. A lot of times when we talk about immersions and mission trips, people emphasize really like we're the hands and feet of Christ. And yes, like we're going because of the presence of Christ that is alive within us, that's moving our hearts, moving us to action. But I think I always leave an experience like this with a stronger perception of the way that Christ is embodied in the people around me, and like diversifying my understanding, expanding my understanding of like who Christ is and where Christ is, where I can encounter him. Of course, encountering the face of Christ in the people that we saw there. So definitely I would encourage anyone who's considering it to go in and experience it.
Well, I love that because it gives us a ton of things to look forward to. Looking forward to coffee in our gift shop and other opportunities, maybe on Donut Sundays or our fair trades.
Like holiday sale, I think.
The holiday sale, yeah. The
fair
trade sale, that's what it's called. So yeah, there's that. There's this upcoming mission in July of 2025. And honestly, I'm pretty sure based on the length of our conversation today, I think anybody could probably see you guys after Mass or at youth group or in young adult circles or on Sundays and be able to ask you guys questions about life in Honduras and what the experience was, even in more detail. You know how there are always like more details in the bulletin? We could be like more details just in person. I've enjoyed not only this podcast, but I've absolutely enjoyed sharing some of those memories and hearing those stories from you guys, and even watching just the level of conversation and everything, the side eyes, the inside jokes, and everything. I feel like a sidecar on the motorcycle. They're driving,
definitely.
like a little hey, what was that like, guys? And it's kind of fun.
Keep talking all afternoon.
Probably could, but with that said, Mary, do you have any shout outs?
Oh my goodness. Well, I know we've kind of touched on his name quite a bit, but I definitely want to just shout out Jim McDaniel and our friends over at Food for the Poor. Without some key players, I don't know if this would have come together. So thank you. Shout out to Jim McDaniel and his dedication just to I really like what you all said at the beginning of this podcast of partnering with the poor. I think that is a really beautiful mindset, because usually it's like serve the poor, charity to the poor, we do something to the poor, but I really like that word partner with the poor. So so the work of Operation Starfish and Food for the Poor make that possible for us to experience here at Nativity. And really just hearing, like, it's really incredible just hearing all the stories about these individual encounters and how the work and the generosity of this parish here in Burke, Virginia is making very, very real change in these villages in the mountains and cities in Honduras. Like, it's really mind-blowing. So thank you all so much for being on today. Thank you for sharing. And with that, Father,
I wanted to shout out Monsignor too, because it was really kind of his brainchild and a great way to kind of continue the work that his predecessor Father Martin had done, but also in approving the future and and I love the idea of him sort of saying, like, do we think that this is a good thing for the future? And like, he's the kind of guy who sets up a really good plan and then asks you if it was a good plan, not because he needed the reaffirmation, but he's just kind of like gives it to you, but you're like, yeah, Monsignor, that was a good idea. That was a really good idea. And I just appreciate the generosity that he was able to allow Father Bennett to be gone for a week and to allow half our staff to be gone for a week. So it was really a blessing. It was hard on the rest of it. No, I'm just kidding. It was great. But we're very grateful for you guys to be able to lead that and lead the way. So that shout out to Monsignor for making that possible, for all giving the permissions, and for you guys. What a joy. I love working with you guys anyway. So the joy of being able to bring you into my little office and to bring you into the studio and to make this a reality.
And maybe just one more shout out, if that's all right. I would say a shout out to all of you future missionaries. I want to encourage you that if this is something that's on your heart, to really consider it. We'd love for you to be a part of this. And as we know, our Holy Father, Pope Francis, he talks about the opportunity of going to the peripheries and accompanying the poor. Well, I have good news. You have an opportunity to do that, and I'd like to invite you to come with us.
So thank you very much for that invitation, Father Bennett. So I want to invite you, if you listeners, if you were impacted by this episode, if this moved you, if you're like, you know what, there's someone that I think would actually really benefit from going on the mission trip next year or learning more, please share this episode with them. As Father Bresnahan likes to say, that is the best way to share just about the mission that we're doing here on the podcast and a lot of the ministries and work of Nativity, is to share it by word of mouth. So you can subscribe and follow our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. But really, the most effective way to share this work is by word of mouth. So yeah, again, just want to offer that first step invitation.
Yeah, and we want to thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for being on our show. And please continue to keep us in your prayers and know that we are praying for you. God bless you. Have a great day.